At 11 minutes past 10, long after the island mail boat should have been tied up on the mainland, its green lamp appears again inside the harbor fog. It carries no passengers and only one piece of cargo, a faded red mail bag from a route that closed 30 years ago. You are standing in the doorway of the island post office when the boat eases against the pier. The sea is calm, the office stove is warm, and nothing about the late arrival feels dangerous. Still, the bag seems to have been traveling toward this room for a very long time, and tonight it has reached the last person who might know where its letters belong. The post office occupies the ground floor of a narrow stone house overlooking the inner harbor. By day, its blue door stands open to fishermen, shopkeepers, children buying single stamps, and neighbors who have forgotten whether the mainland parcel comes on Tuesday or Thursday. By night, it belongs to the click of the cooling stove, the dry smell of paper, and the small brass lamp you keep burning above the sorting table. This is your final week as the island's temporary postmaster. You came for one season while the regular keeper recovered from a tired knee, and you have almost decided that you will leave when the relief boat comes on Monday. You have learned the names, the lanes, and the ordinary rhythm of the work, yet you have not quite learned whether the island has made room for you, or whether you have merely passed through it efficiently. The mailboat touches the fenders with a soft wooden knock. Its pilot steps onto the pier, carrying the red bag in both hands. His name is Elias, and in every other delivery you have seen him move quickly, as though the tide were already asking him to return. Tonight he walks slowly. "Found this behind the old root lockers," he says when he reaches the office door. "The mainland depot is being cleared before they mend the roof. Your island's brass tag was still on it." The canvas is darkened with age but perfectly dry. A wide leather strap circles its middle, and a brass oval hangs beneath the buckle. The engraving has softened until the letters are almost smooth. You can still make out the island's old harbor mark. A gull above 3 waves. Elias sets the bag on the sorting table. The wood gives a quiet creak beneath its weight. "They asked whether it should go to the records office," he says. "I told them there was still a postmaster here." There is no ceremony in his voice, only simple certainty. He takes the receipt book while you find a clean page. Under the brass lamp, you enter the hour, the condition of the seal, and the faded number painted near the buckle. Elias signs beneath your line, then he removes his cap, accepts the mug of tea you have kept warm beside the stove, and sits near the window while you examine the fastening. The seal is not official wax. It is a short length of blue cord tied through the buckle in a careful square knot. A paper label has been folded beneath it, but the ink has faded into pale tracks. You slide the cord free without cutting it and lay it beside the ledger. When you open the bag, the room fills with the quiet fragrance of old paper, dry lavender, dust, and something faintly salty. Inside are 17 letters arranged in 3 bundles. Each bundle has been wrapped in oiled paper and tied with cotton tape. None of the envelopes is torn. None bears the black mark used for mail that could not be delivered. They have not been rejected or returned. They have simply waited. The top envelope is the color of cream. A green stamp rests in one corner, and across the front is a name you recognize. Not the person themselves, but the family name painted above the blue cottage at the end of Lantern Lane. That is the first sign that the night may be simpler than it seems. You carry the island address book from the side shelf and open it beside the bag. The newest entries are written in your hand. Older changes appear in the regular postmaster's sloping script. Farther back, the paper grows soft, and the letters belong to keepers whose portraits hang in the little upstairs room. You begin with the cream envelope. The given name appears only once in the oldest book, beside the blue cottage. A later note records a marriage, then a move across the lane, then a return to the same house many years afterward. The intended recipient is still on the island. You saw him that morning carrying apples in a shallow wooden box. You do not open the letter. The outside has already told you enough. You place it in a fresh sorting tray and write the present lane on a removable slip. One letter has found its way forward. Elias leans toward the table, but he does not ask what the letter says. A good mailboat pilot understands the dignity of a sealed envelope. He asks only, "Someone still there?" You nod. "Then the bag knew where it was going," he says. The stove settles with a faint tick. Beyond the window, fog presses softly against the glass, turning the harbor lamps into round pools of pearl. The mailboat rocks at its rope. The office feels smaller than it did an hour ago, but in a comfortable way, as though the stone walls have drawn close to protect the task. The second envelope is addressed to the old island school. The teacher named on it retired long before the current children were born. The school itself remains, a low white building above the playing field, and its records cupboard contains a box for every former teacher. You add the envelope to a second tray marked for the school archive. The third is for the bakery on Market Step. The shop has changed hands twice, though never its ovens. The family name on the letter belongs to the grandmother of the baker, who now begins work at 4 each morning. You know he will already be awake when you reach his door. The fourth bears no house number at all. It is addressed to the room above the chandlery, a description more useful on an island than any set of digits. The chandlery became a repair shop, then a sail loft, and is now the quiet apartment of a woman who restores wooden toys. The old tenant named on the envelope was her uncle. She keeps his carved boats on the sill. One by one, the island begins to gather around the sorting table. A cottage beside the western well, a boathouse with a red pulley, the narrow farm where geese sleep beneath the pear trees, the former nurse's room behind the clinic, the keeper's desk at the small museum. The names have changed, but the places remember enough to guide you. You take a pencil and draw 3 columns on a sheet of wrapping paper. The first is for letters that can still reach the person named. The second is for letters that belong with a family or a place. The third is for those that need more searching. Soon there are 6 in the first column, 7 in the second, and 4 in the last. The work is unhurried and exact. You compare loops of handwriting. You consult the forwarding cards in the grey drawer. You turn the old lane map so that north faces the window. Each answer leads to a shelf, a ledger, or a memory from your rounds. When the lamp needs oil, you trim its wick. When the stove quiets, you add 1 piece of peat and close the iron door. Elias finishes his tea. The mainland tide will turn before midnight, but the fog is thinning, and he has no concern about the crossing. He stands, pulls on his coat, and leaves the signed receipt on the desk. At the doorway, he pauses beside the red bag. "There may be a reason it was never sent," he says, "or there may only have been a shelf and then another shelf in front of it." This is reassuring in its own fashion. Not every long silence hides a secret. Sometimes a thing is delayed because rooms change, roofs leak, labels fade, and someone means to return tomorrow. The ordinary world is capable of losing what matters. It is also capable of finding it again. You walk Elias to the pier. The fog has lifted high enough to show a few stars above the harbor mouth. He unties the stern rope, steps aboard, and starts the small engine. Its low pulse crosses the water without urgency. The green lamp moves beyond the breakwater, pauses once as the boat turns, and then becomes a single steady point on the dark sea. Back inside, you close the blue door, but leave its upper window uncovered. The red bag remains at the center of the table. Empty now, it slumps against the brass lamp, its deep color unlike anything else in the room. You return to the 4 uncertain letters. The first is addressed only to Mara at the North Garden. There is no Mara in the current directory, and the island has several gardens that might be called North. You search the oldest book and find 3 women with that name, none beside a garden. Then you notice a faint pressed stem beneath the envelope flap. The narrow leaves are silver green. On the island, only one garden grows rosemary in the open air. It lies behind a high stone wall above the northern cove, where sea wind passes over without reaching the soil. The house now belongs to a retired cabinet maker. In the directory, his mother is listed by her full first name, Maribel. Mara. You add the letter to the family tray. The next envelope is thick and square, addressed to the captain of a vessel called Morning Wren. The boat name is unfamiliar, but the old harbor register is kept beneath the counter for precisely this kind of question. You lift the heavy book onto the table and follow the columns backward. Fishing boats, packet boats, and private launches pass beneath your finger until the Morning Wren appears beside a drawing of a small black hull. The captain's name is the same as the owner of the repair yard. His son owns it now. Hanging above the yard office is a faded wooden board painted with a black bird in flight. You have walked beneath it dozens of times without knowing it was once the sign of a boat. The square envelope joins the family tray. The third uncertain letter is addressed to a house called Fairweather. No house on the modern map carries that name. You try the property book, then the tax list, then the thin notebook of informal names kept by an earlier postmaster. There you find a sentence written in brown ink: Fairweather, the East Watch Cottage, so called because its windows show the mainland only on clear days. The East Watch Cottage is now a public reading room. Its caretaker opens at 8. You place the envelope with the letters that belong to places. Only one remains. It is smaller than the others and made of plain gray paper. There is no stamp, which means it was placed directly into a post office box. The handwriting is neat and deeply pressed. Instead of a person's name, the envelope carries 5 words. For whoever keeps the island post, the message is not addressed to a stranger from 30 years ago. It is addressed to a roll, and tonight the roll is yours. You rest your hand beside it. The gray paper has the soft edges of something handled carefully. On the back, the flap is closed with a circle of blue wax, impressed by the same gull, and 3 waves engraved on the bag's brass tag. For a moment, the office contains only the clock above the parcel shelf and the gentle scrape of a branch against the upstairs gutter. You have spent the season respecting every closed envelope that passed through your hands. This one asks to be opened by the person sitting in your chair. You warm the edge of a narrow knife near the lamp and lift the wax without breaking the paper. Inside is one folded sheet and a smaller card. The card shows a hand-drawn plan of the post office. A tiny cross marks the lowest drawer of the sorting cabinet, the one that has always stuck halfway. The letter begins without a date. The writer identifies herself as the keeper of the island post during the years when the red bags still crossed twice a day. She explains that the 17 letters were gathered during one unsettled season, when families changed houses, boats changed owners, and the mainland route office moved before its records were complete. She had traced nearly every address and packed the letters for the final crossing back to the island. Then the old route was closed sooner than expected. The bag was moved with the route ledgers. Her notes went one way, the bag another. For years she wrote to the mainland depot asking whether it had been found. Eventually the replies stopped. She never knew that it had been placed behind the lockers, protected by its oiled wrapping, waiting through every repainting of the room. Her words contain no anger. She writes that a post office is built around patience. A letter may cross the sea in an afternoon, or it may need years for the right hands, the right address book, and the right quiet night to come together. The final line asks the next keeper to use the marked drawer. If any name can no longer be found, you set the letter down and kneel beside the sorting cabinet. The lowest drawer resists at the familiar point. This time you empty the cabinet above it, take the small iron key from the plan, and fit it into a keyhole hidden beneath the wooden lip. A second catch releases, the drawer slides all the way out. Inside are bundles of forwarding notes tied in blue cord. There are old lane cards, family trees sketched on scrap paper, lists of boat names, and small maps showing how house names changed over the years. The former keeper's work has been here all season, beneath your table, waiting as patiently as the mailbag. You carry the bundles to the lamp. The first card you unfold is for Lantern Lane. It records the blue cottage, the marriage, the move, and the return years before those facts were copied into the official address book. Another card connects Mara of the North Garden to the cabinet maker's family. A third links the mourning wren to the repair yard. The answers you found are confirmed one by one. At the bottom of the drawer lies a narrow book labeled only with the gull mark. Each page is reserved for a letter that could not yet be delivered. The last written page lists the same 17 envelopes now arranged on your table. Beside 15 of them, the former keeper penciled a likely destination. Beside the final 2, she left careful questions. Those questions have answers now. The East Watch cottage became the reading room. The old nurse's room became part of the clinic archive. The island did not forget. It continued living until the clues made sense. You realize that the central task of the night is already complete. Every letter has a home. Not every person named is still alive. Some envelopes will be received by a son, a niece, a school cupboard, a museum shelf, or a house that kept the same stones when its signboard changed. But none must be stamped unknown. None needs to return across the water. You make a fresh pot of tea and begin preparing the morning route. For the 6 living recipients, you use the ordinary brown satchel. For the families, you tie each envelope to a white card explaining only where the bag was found, and asking that the sealed letter be kept or opened as they choose. For the places, you write a brief record for the island archive. The grey letter to the postmaster remains beside the lamp. The clock reaches 1. The fog has moved inland and settled low among the lanes. Above it, chimney pots and the school roof rise into clear starlight. The island is asleep, but not silent. Water turns against the stone steps. A loose halyard taps softly on a mast. Somewhere behind Market Step, the baker lifts the first tray onto his wooden bench. You put on your coat, settle the satchel across your shoulder, and step outside. The night route begins at Lantern Lane. The stones are pale with mist, and your footsteps make only a soft brushing sound. At the Blue Cottage, a brass mail clip waits beside the door. You slide the cream envelope beneath it and make sure the old paper is protected by the porch roof. A light appears behind the curtain before you reach the gate. The door opens, and the elderly man you saw carrying apples stands in a wool dressing gown. His eyes move from you to the envelope. At first he seems to notice only the family name. Then he sees the handwriting beneath it. He does not ask you to explain everything. He touches the corner of the envelope with one finger and says his sister's name. She wrote from the mainland when both of them were young. He had always believed the letter she promised was never sent. You tell him where the bag was found. He holds the envelope against the flat of his palm, not opening it yet. "I think I will read it with breakfast," he says. He thanks you, closes the door gently, and leaves the porch light burning until you turn the corner. The next stop is the bakery. Warm air carries the scent of flour and yeast down the steps. The baker is shaping loaves at the rear table when you knock on the glass. He wipes his hands, reads the name on the white card, and smiles before he even studies the envelope. His grandmother kept every letter she received in a tin above the ovens. He says this one can join them. He places it on a high shelf away from the flour, then gives you a small round roll wrapped in cloth for the rest of your route. You continue toward the harbor repair yard. The gate is closed, so you secure the square letter in the covered message box. Above you, the painted black bird on the old board seems different now. It is no longer a decoration weathered nearly blank. It is the morning wren, still marking the place where its captain's family comes to work. At the school, you enter with the post key and cross the empty classroom. Moonlight lies in long, pale rectangles across the desks. You place the teacher's letter inside the archive cupboard, on top of the correct wooden box with your note beneath it. The room smells faintly of chalk floor wax and the apples children left in a basket near the door. At the reading room, the former Fairweather cottage, you pause beside the eastern window. The mainland is invisible beneath the fog, just as it must have been on most mornings when the house earned its name. You leave the letter in the caretaker's locked tray and draw the curtain halfway closed. The route carries you through the island without asking you to hurry. At the clinic, the nurse's envelope goes into the records cupboard. At the toy restorer's apartment, the letter for the room above the chandlery slips beneath a blue-painted door. At the north garden, Rosemary brushes the stone wall and releases its clean scent into the damp air. You leave Mara's envelope with the family card inside a dry wooden box. With each delivery, the satchel grows lighter, yet the island around you feels more connected, as if thin invisible threads now run from the old route books to the present doors. The work is not grand, no bell rings, no crowd gathers. A letter rests beneath a clip in a box on a shelf, that is enough. Near 3, you return to the post office for the second bundle. The stove still holds its heat. The red bag waits on the table beside the grey letter. You drink half your tea, eat the baker's roll, and study the remaining route cards while the office clock measures another quiet quarter hour. The final deliveries lie farther apart. You follow the upper lane to the pear farm, where geese murmur once beneath the trees and settle again. You cross the footbridge over the narrow stream, you climb to the museum, housed in the former harbor watch room, and place one envelope in the keeper's locked drawer beside a row of old compasses. The last family letter belongs at a cottage above the western well. Its recipient moved away long ago, but her daughter returned to the island and planted white currants along the same wall. Your note and the envelope fit neatly into the green box by the gate. When the satchel is empty, the sky over the mainland has begun to pale. It is not yet sunrise. The sea and the air are still nearly the same shade, but the horizon carries a narrow line of silver. Behind you, the island roofs emerge from the thinning fog one by one. You take the long way back. At Lantern Lane, the porch light is still on. At the bakery, the first loaves cool behind clear glass. At the school, the weather vane turns once toward the east. The places you knew yesterday are unchanged, yet each now holds something that traveled through an old red bag to reach it. You understand then that belonging to the island was never going to arrive as a formal invitation. It appears through repetition, knowing which gate drags on the stones, remembering who needs a parcel carried to the kitchen, recognizing an old boat in a faded sign, keeping a lamp above the sorting table because a late boat might need to see it. You had thought of yourself as someone filling a chair until the regular keeper returned. But the former keeper's letter did not arrive for a substitute. It arrived for whoever kept the island post for one quiet night and perhaps for longer. That person is you. Back at the office, you enter every delivery in the old gull-marked book. Beside each of the 17 names, you write the present destination and the hour. The final column asks for the keeper's initials. You pause, then add them carefully. You return the route cards to the hidden drawer, but you do not lock it again. The island's memory should be used, not concealed. You place the red bag on the upper shelf where morning light can reach it. Its brass tag hangs over the edge, the gull and 3 waves facing the room. On a clean page in the regular ledger, you write a note for the postmaster returning next week. You explain the late boat, the old bag, the 17 deliveries, and the drawer beneath the cabinet. At the end, you add one more sentence. If the position is still open after the autumn, I would like to stay. The decision looks calm in ink. It does not feel sudden. It feels like the final address on a letter you have been sorting all season. You close the ledger and carry the empty tea mugs to the little sink. Water runs softly into the basin. You wipe the sorting table, coil the blue cord, and fold the oiled paper into a neat square. Outside, the harbor begins to show its colors again. Grey stone, green water, white boats, the muted red of a buoy beyond the pier. The first ordinary mail of morning will not arrive for several hours. The blue door remains closed. There is nothing else that must be solved before daylight. You sit in the wooden chair beside the stove with the grey letter on the table and the empty satchel resting near your boots. The building holds the warmth of the night's work. Above you, the clock continues its patient round, and from the harbor comes the soft sound of water lifting and lowering the boats against their ropes. Morning gathers slowly at the post office window. The pale line above the sea widens, touching the glass, the brass lamp, the worn edge of the sorting table. You turn the lamp wick down until its flame becomes a small blue bead. Then close the little metal cap. Daylight takes its place without leaving the room dim. The stove gives a steady warmth. Near it your coat hangs from a wooden peg, carrying the faint cool scent of fog and rosemary. The satchel lies open to the air, empty now except for a few grains of flour from the baker's roll. You brush them into your palm and leave the leather flap unfastened. There is a simple order to the room. Stamps rest in their shallow drawer. Twine hangs from its hook. Pencils wait beside the ledger, their points turned the same way. The blue cord from the old bag has been looped into a circle and placed beneath the brass tag. Everything that traveled in the night has reached a resting place. You settle deeper into the chair. It was made for long shifts, with broad arms polished smooth by generations of sleeves. The cushion yields beneath you. One foot rests near the stove, the other beside the satchel, and the warmth rises through the quiet room in slow, even waves. Outside, the tide moves along the harbor wall. Water reaches the lowest stone step, pauses, and draws away. It reaches the step, pauses, and draws away. Each small movement shifts the boats only slightly. Their ropes tighten with a soft creak, loosen, and become still. The red mailbag rests on the upper shelf. In daylight its color is softer, closer to brick and dried berries than the bright red you imagine beneath the lamp. The canvas folds into itself. The empty bag has nothing more to carry this morning. Its long journey has become part of the room. The ledger remains open on the desk. 17 lines cross the page in calm, dark ink. Each begins with an old name and ends with a present place. Between them lies the whole quiet work of the night, reduced now to neat entries that need no further thought. You let the clock keep the hour for you. Its hands move behind the clean glass. The pendulum travels left, then right, never hurrying toward the next delivery. The sound blends with the stove and the tide until no single rhythm asks for attention. A long lantern lane, a cream envelope waits beside a breakfast cup. At the bakery, another rests safely above the ovens. In the school, the archive cupboard holds its new addition among the old wooden boxes. The island is receiving the letters quietly, house by house, shelf by shelf, without needing you to follow them any farther. The fog has thinned into pale ribbons above the water. One ribbon passes the pier and opens a view of the harbor mouth. Another drifts between the white boats and disappears. The air beyond the window looks cool, while the glass near your chair keeps the stove's gentle heat. Somewhere in the building, old timber settles with a low, familiar murmur. The sound passes through the ceiling and is gone. The post office returns to the small, steady noises it has kept for years. Paper resting against paper, iron warming stone, water beneath the sill. Your hand lies loosely on the chair arm. The wood is warm beneath your palm. There is no bag left to sort. No uncertain address waiting in the grey drawer, no route that must be walked again. The lanes can remain empty, the gates can remain closed. The morning mail boat is still far beyond the horizon. Light moves gradually down the shelves. It touches the parcel scale and the row of pigeonholes. It reaches the old address books, their cloth spines faded into greens and browns. It catches for a moment on the gull engraved in brass, then settles across the empty sorting tray. The room has made space for the new day, though the new day has not asked anything of you yet. You remain beside the stove, held by the chair, the stone walls, and the quiet knowledge that every letter from the red bag is where it belongs. The last warmth from the tea stays faintly in the mug on the sill. Its handle points toward the chair. A thin circle of steam once touched the window there, but the glass is clear again, showing the gentle gray water beyond. Nothing in the room is waiting to be finished. Beneath the counter, the hidden drawer sits properly in its runners now. The old cards lie in their bundles, blue cord around brown paper, names and lanes resting together in the dark. They can remain there until another address changes, another family returns, or another keeper needs the quiet guidance of a hand that worked before theirs. The floorboards near the stove grow warm first. The warmth spreads beneath the chair and toward the desk, softening the chill left by the open door. It reaches the boots by your feet, the empty satchel, and the lower shelf of ledgers. It moves so slowly that there is no moment when the room changes. Only the calm sense that it has become comfortable everywhere. The tide reaches the lowest step, pauses, and draws away. A rope tightens, gives one soft creak, and loosens. The clock moves left, then right. Warmth crosses the floorboards. Daylight rests on the table. Nothing needs to be carried for a while. The island can wake in its own time. Doors will open later. Kettles will be filled. The baker will turn his sign. Someone will discover an envelope beneath a clip and hold it carefully in the morning light. All of that can happen beyond this room, gently and without haste. Here the stamps remain in their drawer. The twine remains on its hook. The old route book is closed beneath the counter. The satchel remains empty beside your boots, its leather softened by many quiet rounds. The stove gives its warmth. The harbor lifts and lowers the boats. The clock keeps the room without asking you to count. Water reaches the stone, pauses, and draws away. Water reaches the stone, pauses, and draws away. The chair holds you. The room holds the warmth. Morning light rests across the empty sorting table, pale and still.